Hello and welcome to the Complete Podcast Network. I'm Dale Woods, recording from Los Angeles, California. Joining me is Anthony Wilson. Anthony, how you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling all right, Dale. How are you?
Getting ready to wind down for the night, bro. Hey, how'd you do on Prize Picks tonight?
So yesterday was such a bloodbath for me on the first Sunday of the NFL season. I played 33 NFL props, and only 10 of them went green. So that's 10 and 23 that I went on the day, which is really, dismal for on a prop by prop, percentage basis. And so, with that being the case tonight, man, I said, and what really sucks about that is that, there was so much money to be made on those unders, and I just didn't capitalize on it. And I knew because I've never done well on the NFL props. It's really just impossible to predict. There's just so much variance, even more than in other sports. And so today I didn't play any NFL props for the Monday night game. I played a WNBA prop, a WNBA slip. There was only one WNBA game between the Connecticut Sun and the Atlanta Dream. So I played that. I played it one slip for that game, and then I played like a mixed slip. It was like a Caleb Williams. So I played one prop for Monday Night Football. It was the Caleb Williams discount on Prize Picks, of course. And then I played a few baseball slips, and that one chalked. But actually, the slip I played on for the WNBA, which was a four-legger, it actually it greened out. It went 4 for 4. I played them all under because at this point in the WNBA season, you got to understand that these girls went from 36 games like a couple years ago to 40 games last year to 44 games this year. So even in college, none of these girls ever played 40 games in a season. Now they have to play 44. So just at the point of the season where they're tired, and it's so much value on the under right now, the WNBA. Those girls are just not hitting. I play it every day. They're just not hitting. They're not going over there with those marks. Tomorrow there's 5 games. So, if you're in the Prize Picks or Underdog or whatever it is, I would say, take a look at that 5 games, man. There's money to be made there playing unders on WNBA props. So, take that as you may.
That actually sounds pretty smart, but I still wouldn't advise the listeners to take gambling advice from
I don't blame you.
Okay, so on tonight's show, J.J. McCarthy wins his first career start. Pete Carroll puts his imprint on the Raiders, and more from Week 1 in the NFL. Let's get to it.
All right, so as you mentioned, tonight, Monday Night Football, it was the Vikings at the Bears, and the Bears started well. Caleb Williams scored a touchdown. I think it was their first possession of the game for the Bears. He ran into the end zone. And the Bears were looking good for the first 3 quarters. They were up 17-6. J.J. McCarthy was looking shaky. And then in the 4th quarter, J.J. McCarthy came alive in his first career start. He scored, he got counted for 3 touchdowns during the 4th quarter. It was two passing touchdowns and another rushing, and the Bears were able to come back and win that game 27-14. So a lot of people on social media were looking at that and going, McCarthy's looking shaky. I had the same sentiment. I said, Fran Tarkenton is not walking through that door. Randall Cunningham is not walking through that door. Dante Culpepper is not walking through that door. And then just like that, but really I'm probably the reason that it turned around for the Vikings. I jinxed it, Like it's like a jinx that worked in their favor. Right? I jinxed the Bears, I should say. They came alive and they won that game, and now it flips back. I was thinking like, damn, like Ben Johnson just flipped the script on two franchises. Like he reversed the fortunes of two franchises at once, because the Lions, who I mentioned a couple times, I think that you just don't know what they're going to look like without Ben Johnson. And yesterday at Green Bay, they didn't look good at all on offense. And then what was I going to say? And then tonight the Bears, after a good start, it was looking like damn. So Ben Johnson, he leaves the Lions, and they don't look the same, and the Bears look completely different in a good way. And it seemed like it was like that for 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter, the Bears turned back into the Bears. So, sucks for them. Congratulations to Big Mitch. I know he was watching tonight, and he was happy with that turnaround there in the fourth quarter. And so a good start to JJ McCarthy's career. Remember, he missed all of last season due to injury. He had a knee injury. He missed all of last season. So these were the first NFL snaps of his career tonight. And he, like I said, bro, he didn't play about for the first 3 quarters. But then in the fourth quarter, he did what he needed to do, bro. That's why I was like, I want to compare him to another Michigan man like Tom Brady, but I mean, like I said, bro, he did his thing in the fourth. Now, numbers wise overall, he's only 13 for 20 for 143 yards, so that sucks, right? But like I said, he made the plays that needed to be made when it needed to be made. And the Vikings emerged 1-0. And for the Bears, Caleb Williams was 21 to 35 for 210 yards and a touchdown. He also had 6 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. And early on, he was really just showing, how much. I don't know if people quite realize just how talented Caleb Williams is. He's very, very talented quarterback. Can throw it. I mean, not many people who can throw the ball like Caleb Williams can. And, he, as an athlete, he's very good. But then in that fourth quarter, they just couldn't. It's like they just couldn't. By the time they were able to score, it was too late. And by then there wasn't enough time. So it is what it is, man. We'll have to see what happens going forward. The thing about it is, I want to say, we shouldn't overreact, but, there's really no point in saying that because, of course, we're always going to overreact, even if it's, just week 1 of the season. But what I really wanted to talk about tonight was I'm gonna do a rundown of all the rest of the games. I already talked about the Eagles and Cowboys, and also about the Chiefs and the Chargers. So I'll just talk about the rest of the games that took place yesterday, and the games. I just covered the Vikings and the Bears, but the games from yesterday. Which were. I want to start with the Raiders beating the Patriots 20 to 13. The game was in New England, and the Raiders emerged victorious. And I was listening to Bomani Jones talk about that at the game today, and he talked about Geno Smith and Chip Kelly, and it's just like, and maybe I was wrong, maybe I wasn't all the way, locked in while I was listening to him. Maybe he gave Pete some credit, but I was just, just in general, I feel like Pete Carroll does not get the recognition that he deserves overall for how great of a football coach he is. I think if you, so when the Raiders hired him, I talked about it, and then I talked about it last week when I was going through the Chiefs' schedule, and I was saying, bro, the Raiders have Pete Carroll now. The Raiders are no longer going to be an easy win on the schedule for anybody, right? And so I just think that yesterday, and I didn't watch the game, but I can feel the vibes, And I know, Pete, I'm a USC guy. I'm a guy who grew up in South Central, been here my whole life, close enough to the Coliseum that when I would go outside at night, sometimes as a kid, I could hear the PA announcer over the loudspeaker at the Coliseum, right? So USC is like my community, And so, and I was a huge USC fan back then when Pete had the incredible success he had. The record was 97-19 that he had. He followed up at USC. Of course, won, back-to-back national championships, bunch of Rose Bowls and bowl games. He actually only lost one bowl game in all those years, and that was, of course, the Rose Bowl against Texas. But Pete Carroll, and I think, that era was so special and so unforgettable and so captivating in a way that, like, everybody remembers the Pete Carroll, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Lindell White, Dwayne Jarrett, Mike Williams, Steve Smith, all, Taylor Mays and Darnell Bing, those safeties and how hard-hitting those defenses were. And, of course, the linebacking crew from, 07 and 06, 07, 08. I'm talking, Cushing and Malaluga and Matthews. I mean, everybody remembers what that was like. And even people who, not from L.A., who would watch on TV and see, Snoop on the sideline, see Will Ferrell on the sideline. It's that era that USC had is right up there with the Miami of, the Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson Miami when it was really like the U. That USC era is, that's like one, you can't even say, you can't even put one really, I guess maybe the Miami, it lasted a little bit longer. I'm not even sure about that, But yeah, it's like, they're right there neck and neck for like the most unforgettable eras of college football. Just from not just a winning a bunch, but just the style points, right? And so, but everybody remembers that. But then, I feel like if you look at the totality of his career, he doesn't get enough credit, bro. You have to realize that even before, everybody knows that it wasn't until he got to SC that he was able to go there and, figure out exactly how he wants to run his thing, right? Before that, he'd been an NFL coach twice, two different teams. With the Jets for 1 year, it was right after the first year, went 6-10, and then with New England, right? And so overall, his record was 33-31 in 4 seasons as an NFL coach the first time, right? So that's not, that's definitely it's not like he was an absolute flame out, which is how people used to talk about it. I guess that just makes the story more, gives a little bit more juice, I guess, when you make it seem like Pete Carroll was just a flame out in his first, couple tenures or stints as an NFL coach, which he wasn't. But then, so that happens. Then he goes to USC. They have this, like I said, this incredible run. Then he comes he comes back to the NFL with the Seahawks, and they go 7-9. The first year was the year, the Beastquake year, where they won the playoff game. And then the next year they go 7-9. And then year 3, that's Russell Wilson's rookie year. And then year 4, year 3 they won 11 games, or something like that. And year 4 they won the Super Bowl. Next year make it back again. Of course, you have the Malcolm Butler. And I think that part of the reason that Pete doesn't get the acclaim he should get is because he had 2 of the most high profile losses in the history of football. One in college, of course, like I said, I mentioned the Rose Bowl, and I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast before. Of course, what people for the last 20 years have been pointing to was Pete's decision to not have Reggie Bush on the field on that fateful 4th down play there where Texas stopped Lindell White, and they went down. He went on, Vince Young did what he did, right? Walked us out of there at the Rose Bowl, and so, but that's one of those things that has always stuck in my craw, is when people say that Pete should have had Reggie Bush on the field. Like, I watched that team for 3 straight years with those guys, and that wasn't how we. That's not what we did. We didn't need to. We didn't, and the argument I think is not so much that he should have handed the ball off to Reggie, because that was. I mean, if you think that you're just a complete novice and you don't understand that Reggie was not he was godlike in college, but Lindell White was the power back, the all-time leader in touchdowns at USC, one of the great short yardage running backs in the history of college football. Lindell White was, and we had won 34 straight games with the same formula. But I think no even semi intelligent person thinks that we should have handed the ball to Reggie there. So I think what it is, the more any intelligent, not even intelligent, because I think anybody who says it is an idiot, but even semi-intelligent or sentient, a semi-sentient person, what they say is that, well, he could have at least had Reggie on the field as a decoy. But my thing is, like I said, bro, that's not what they did. That wasn't the formula. So why would, and they won 34 straight games, doing the same thing. So why would you get to the biggest play of one of the, this is a chance we're going for the 3-peat, right? And I keep saying I didn't go to USC, right? But I'm a USC meat writer, basically. USC never really wanted anything to do with me, being honest. But USC, they're going for the 3-peat, the first ever 3-peat in the history of national of college football, I believe. And it's back then they coined it a 3-peat with the PETE. They're going for that. We won 34 straight games, and you're going to tell me that we should do something completely different? Why would Pete Carroll even think to do that in that situation? Pete or Lane or Sarkisian. Why change what you've been doing this whole time just to add a new wrinkle in there? It's just not. I never thought it was a fair criticism, and so yeah, that's just an aside. I know any Raiders fans listen, it's okay, like, thank you for the backstory on Pete Carroll, but how does this? Well, but my point was that and of course the situation with the Malcolm Butler interception, but that was the one that was like, okay, why do you throw the ball there? I understand that, but I just feel like those two things happening, and of course, and also the fact that Pete is just such a nice, like happy-go-lucky guy. It makes it to where people are like, when you're a really nice guy, people will find ways to slight you or not respect you or whatever. So that's why I think Pete Carroll doesn't get mentioned as much as he should with the all-time great coaches. Like, I mean, if you think about the all the greatest one championship NFL coaches, right? Tony Dungy in the Hall of Fame, Mike Holmgren in the Hall of Fame, Bill Cowher in the Hall of Fame, right? Well, I mean, Pete Carroll, if you look at what he did, and I give Holmgren credit because he did it, he won with Green Bay and then made it again with Seattle. But, I mean, Pete Carroll, you look at what he did in Seattle. So after those first two seasons, going 7-9 and 7-9, they then won 10 or more games in 8 of the next 9 years, with one 9-win season sandwiched in between, followed by 7-10, 9-8, and 9-8, and then they let Pete go. And so, we're talking about, an incredible, and then when you mix that in with what he did at USC, you're talking about one of the greatest football coaches of all time. And he just doesn't get the recognition as such. So this little tidbit that I've stated many times over the years, which is this is in USC days. This is how dominant and how great those USC teams were. Between October 12th, 2002 and January 1st, 2009, USC went 81-7 with their worst loss being by a touchdown. Not only that, but in the 17 games that preceded that run and marked the beginning of Pete's tenure there, 7 of their 8 losses were also by a single score or less, and the other was by 11 points. What Pete did was just it was incredible. It's like so that first year, and I think this is where I feel like this is where this is where my point about Pete, and for anybody who hasn't been paying as much attention as I have, who I'm trying to explain what Pete Carroll brings to a franchise and how things typically have looked at in the last 25 years of his head coaching career. So USC, they went 6-6 that first year at Pete's first year at USC, and so they had one loss by 11, which I mentioned. The rest were by 5 points or fewer, which I also sort of mentioned. So I think if you're a Raiders fan and you're looking at this team this year, right? And I'm looking at their schedule for the rest of the way, and I want to know, they got the Chargers next week. That's going to be in Las Vegas. Then they're at the Commanders. Then they got the Bears at home, at the Colts, and they got the Titans at home. Then they're at the Chiefs, and they got the Jags at home. And they're at the Broncos. And they got the Cowboys and the Browns at home. And they're at the Chargers. And they got the Broncos at home. And they got the Eagles and Texans on the road. And they finish up with the Giants at home, right? Now, I went and I counted. I said Bears, Colts, Titans, Jags, Browns, and Giants. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 wins. And then one more. Counting the one they have tonight, that'll get them to 7, right? And then those other games, you got Chargers, Commanders, Chiefs twice, Broncos twice, the Cowboys, and the Eagles and the Texans, right? The thing about it is that who knows, right? The thing about Pete Carroll is that if nothing else, your team is going to be competitive. Your team is going to be competitive if they have Pete Carroll as their head coach. Now, this is not the same type of roster that he had, that USC roster that he had for college football at the time. No roster had ever been better, right? And then that roster that he had in Seattle, when they were, when he drafted all those guys and they were young, that was the most talented team in football for a nice, 3-year stretch, right? And it really sucks they only got one Super Bowl out of it. They really should have had that second one, as we all know. And so I think what this year might look like is kind of like that first USC, where they're in every game, but they drop some. Probably lose a couple games, lose some games close that they should have really won. And you look at it and you go, damn, we went 9-8, or we went 8-9, but we could have easily been 12-5. And what Pete has shown is that the first year or two, those are the years where he's just changing the culture. And I think you can already see that with the Raiders. They just seem more buttoned up, more professional, more prepared. Like I said, you can just feel the vibes. I know Pete Carroll, and then from there, by year 3, I mean, it's time. You're ready for liftoff. Now this roster that they have, as I alluded to, is not. This is not a. I don't know how good. He went 9-8 with Geno Smith. Right, so I don't know how far a Geno Smith-led team can go, but like I said, if and Pete's 73 years old, so that's the other factor, right? But if he can last, a couple more years, 2, 3, 4 more years, man, and maybe, use Geno as a bridge quarterback at some point, and you draft, get somebody in the draft who you really like, who can be your next Russell Wilson. Maybe they get somebody in this draft coming up, and you do that. We know it's one of the greatest talent evaluators and recruiters in the history of football. And one of the greatest people as far as drafting in the history of the NFL. So, yeah, man, the sky is the limit if they can find the quarterback. Because I'm pretty sure the rest of the roster he's gonna build that up. They're gonna be formidable. But it's going to come down to the quarterback. And I don't know if Geno Smith is that guy, but if there's anybody who can find the guy, it would be Pete Carroll. So yeah, man, we'll just have to see how it goes. Like I said, if nothing else, as long as Pete Carroll is there, the Raiders are going to be more competitive and more professional and more prepared than they've been in a very long time. All right, so I spent so much time talking about Pete that I'm going to have to kind of speed through the rest of the week 1 results. So let me see here. Okay, so we had the Cardinals. They beat the Saints. What can I say? The Saints are not good. The Colts beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins are terrible. It seems like they may have quit on Mike McDaniel. And boy, much to my surprise, man, Daniel Jones balled out. Daniel Jones went 22 for 29 for 272 yards, a touchdown. Yeah, and he had 2 more touchdowns on the ground. So good for you, Daniel Jones. I'm always happy to see a young player who, maybe had a rough start to his career, turn things around. We should all be happy to see that. We had the Steelers beating the Jets, man. Aaron Rodgers looked vintage. 22 of 244 yards, 4 touchdown passes. Justin Fields also looked good, 16 of 22, 218 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Garrett Wilson had 7 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf had 4 catches for 82 yards for the Steelers. And yeah, bro, Aaron Rodgers, man. You know, you put him in. It's like one of those situations where, okay, yeah, he was on the Jets, right? Who does that usually work well for, right? And now he's back in one of the best, franchises you could possibly play for, one of the best coaches you could play for, and I just think it fits, bro. The Commanders beat the Giants 21-6. How can I say the Giants still don't look like a good football team? The Jaguars beat the Panthers 26-10. Bryce Young looked like Bryce Young. So perhaps whatever the Panthers were thinking that, and I can't say I didn't. I mean, it seemed like he was, he had turned the tide a bit, but apparently not. The Bengals beat the Browns 17-16. Don't really have any thoughts on that one. The Buccaneers beat the Falcons 23-20. Nothing to say about that one. The 49ers beat the Seahawks 17-13. It appears that Sam Darnold, as I said, Aaron Rodgers looked like Aaron Rodgers on Sunday, and Sam Darnold looked like Sam Darnold. I think everybody can understand what I meant by that. The Broncos beat the Titans, as you would expect. The Packers beat the Lions. Like I said, I told y'all, man, I expressed concerns before the season started about the Lions and what they were going to look like without Ben Johnson. They did not look good yesterday. The Rams beat the Texans 14-9. And then, of course, last night we had a classic, a thriller in Buffalo, with the Bills coming back from down 41-25 in the fourth quarter. Sorry, 40-25. They came back and got the win in spectacular fashion against the Ravens. So the Ravens continue to have problems in big games. I don't know what to tell you. I saw a stat that said that Jim Harbaugh has won 17 double-digit leads, which is the most by any coach in like the last 25 years. Who knows if that was a real stat or not? But yeah, man, Jim Harbaugh's a hell of a coach, but they got to figure out how to close games and win big games, man. We'll have to see, bro. It's a long season. All right, so before I get out of here, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button next to the Complete Podcast Network and to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at TC Pod Network. You can also send feedback and mailback questions to CompleteLakersPodcast at gmail.com. We are out.